From Fierce Whole Lot of Love to Stairway to Heaven, Led Zeppelin has made some of the most inspiring and influential rock and roll songs ever. None of these songs would have been the same without Robert Plant's powerful voice and captivating lyrics. Rolling Stone once called Plant the best lead singer of all time, and his stage presence was one of the first that said rock god, but despite his fame, the man behind the screen was still a mystery to many, even at the age of 75. Robert Plant's daughter has finally confirmed what many people have long thought, that he had a happy childhood. Robert Plant was born on August 20th, 1948, in the Black Country, an area still affected by the impact of World War II bombings and heavy pollution. His childhood was shaped by the resilience of his surroundings, but he found comfort and joy in the lively presence of his family. Annie Celia Plant, Robert's mother, filled their home with music and mother movement, creating an atmosphere of creativity and warmth. Robert's father, also named Robert, had given up playing the violin to help support the family. It was Annie's lively personality that left an indelible mark on her son. Her Romani heritage added a unique touch. Annie had a unique quality to her personality that Plant loved and embraced, along with her beautiful curly hair. In a reflective moment with BBC's Desert Island Discs, Plant fondly remembered his mother's contagious energy and how her singing and dancing brought joy to their home. He also remembered Annie's thick, unruly hair, a trait he admired and inherited. As he told GQ, "My mother's hair was so thick she couldn't even get a brush through it." Annie's influence on Plant went beyond his own family. His mother influenced his artistic tastes and helped him on his musical journey with Led Zeppelin. Her legacy lives on in the soulful melodies and electrifying performances that have defined Plant's legendary career. His father wanted him to be an accountant. Robert Plant's upbringing was shaped by both his mother's influence and his father's background and goals, as explained in Paul Rees' Robert Plant. Plant, Alabama Life. Plant Sr. was a civil engineer and veteran of the Royal Air Force. He taught his son to love cycling and be a devoted fan of the Wolverhampton Wanderers football team. However, Plant Sr. had more conservative views that went against Robert's artistic interests. In an interesting interview with BBC's Desert Island Discs, Plant talked about the conflict between him and his son. According to Plant, his father didn't see music as a viable career choice. He remembered that his father came from a time when traditional careers like accounting were seen as more respectable and practical. As a result, young Robert felt pressured to follow a career in accountancy, which his father saw as more practical and respectable. In the early 1960s, Plant started an undergraduate program in finance and accounting at the London School of Economics, which was paid for by a scholarship. He eventually dropped out, though, citing his growing love for music as the reason. Plant's short time in the world of finance had a lasting impact. As noted by Executive Hunter, his financial acumen proved invaluable to lead Zeppelin, leading to innovative ways to save money on tours. Plant's suggestion to rent a jet instead of booking a bunch of hotel rooms shows how good he was at managing money, which went well with his artistic skills in the band. He left home to avoid arguments with his parents. Robert Plant's early musical journey was marked by a strong passion that often clashed with, despite his family's expectations. As Paul Rees writes in Musical Journey in Robert Plant: A Life, Plant's love of music began when he was 9 years old and imitated Elvis Presley by singing into his hairbrush. Growing up near Star Bridge, Plant was drawn to the town's blues scene, especially the Seven Stars Blues Club, where he immersed himself in the sounds of. However, Plant's growing interest in music meant that he spent less time at school and more time at the blues bar, which caused problems with his family. In an interview with his Guardian, Plant freely admitted that it was hard to balance his musical goals with parental and educational expectations, stating that it put a lot of stress on his relationships and that his involvement with the Crawling King Snakes, a local band, made things worse with his parents. Despite his best efforts to balance both worlds, Plant's academic performance deteriorated, and he was reportedly expelled from school for truancy. At the age of 17, Plant made the decision to leave home and follow his musical dreams. Looking back on his journey, Plant emphasized further the reconciliation he eventually achieved with his parents, highlighting the understanding and acceptance he found as he began his musical odyssey. In 1963, Robert Plant was on the verge of a musical journey that would forever change the landscape of rock and roll. When he was 15, Plant's growing interest in music led him to meet the Jurymen, a band made up of his friends and schoolmates. At first, Plant helped the group by carrying their gear, but fate intervened when the Jurymen's lead singer Andy Long got sick on the day of a crucial gig, leaving Plant with no choice but to take the lead. Taking the stage at the Bull's Head pub in Lie, different people have different memories of Plant's first performance, which shows the mix of nerves and raw talent that made the moment unique. As described in Robert Plant: A Life, Plant himself remembers being so nervous that he couldn't make eye contact with the audience. Years later, though, Juryman drummer John Dudley Plant's first concert was filled with electrifying confidence that hid any fear. Despite his own problems, Plant's commanding vocals left an indelible mark on the audience, launching him into the world of local bands and setting the stage for his meteoric rise to rock stardom while working with Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones. It was intimidating at first, but by the late 1960s, Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones had already made a name for themselves as accomplished musicians in the music scene. Rolling Stone. Jones had gained fame for his work with Donovan and Jeff Beck, including creating the famous string arrangement for the Rolling Stones' She's a Rainbow. Page, who is known for his amazing guitar skills, was in the Yardbirds. But when they were without a singer in 1968, Page set out to find the perfect frontman all over the UK. Terry Reid, a singer known for his powerful voice and admired by musicians like Aretha Franklin, but Reid, who was on tour with The Doors in Jefferson Airplane at the time, told Page to wait a few weeks. Not wanting to wait, Page looked for an alternative and turned to Reid for suggestions. That's when Reid suggested Robert Plant, who he had met before when Plant opened for one of Reid's shows. Reid later said, "It's a waste of time to talk about it, and they did really well." The end of the story for Plant joining the Yardbirds was a huge step into the unknown, and he found himself in the company of experienced musicians like John Paul Jones and Jimmy Page. He felt scared, and he remembered the experience. We were suddenly along with John Paul Jones and Jimmy Page, who were. It wasn't until around 1970-71 that Plant started to build up the confidence that would make him famous for his singing. Led Zeppelin's first concert was on Robert Plant's wedding day in 1966. Robert Plant's life took a big turn when he met Morn Wilson at a canceled Georgie Fame concert. Unlike most relationships at the time, Wilson helped Plant through the early years. Both Wilson and Plant came from hard-working families. Wilson's father owned a steel factory where Plant briefly worked while pursuing his musical dreams. Wilson worked as a nurse and paid the couple's bills until Plant's career took a dramatic turn for the better with the Yardbirds. In late 1968, the new Yardbirds began touring. Rolling Stone wrote that Led Zeppelin's first performance under their new name occurred at the London Roundhouse on November 9th. It was there, right after their groundbreaking concert, that Plant and Wilson said their vows to each other, making their marriage official. Over the years, the couple had 3 children: Carmen, Creek, and Logan. Plant also started a career as an actor. Wilson usually stayed at their farmhouse Prov to provide stability and care for their growing family. He has been in a number of terrible car accidents in the past. In 1975, Led Zeppelin reached the peak of their musical career with the release of their critically acclaimed album Physical Graffiti. The band's previous album, Tragedy Strikes, shot to the top of the album charts, solidifying their status as rock icons. Their North American tour was met with fervent enthusiasm, culminating in five. Their success was shown by the fact that they played to sold-out crowds at London's prestigious Earl's Court Arena for 3 straight nights in a row. However, tragedy struck while the band was on vacation in Greece between tour stops. A fatal car accident involving Led Zeppelin lead singer Robert Plant's family cast a shadow over their triumph. There are different stories about what happened in the accident. Some say Plant's wife Maureen caused it, while others say Plant was driving. Either way, the rented car went off the road, hurting only their children slightly but leaving Plant and Maureen deeply affected. After the accident, Plant faced the terrifying possibility of losing his beloved wife. Not having immediate access to large amounts of money made the situation even worse. Because they were so successful with their music, they quickly made plans to get Maureen to safety on a private plane with medical staff. However, the car accident left the singer in bad physical and mental shape. Led Zeppelin's tour manager saved the day by making sure that the injured family members were taken to the hospital. Maureen's injuries were so bad that she had to be flown to a hospital in London for immediate medical care. Her survival was truly miraculous. Robert talked about the difficult months that followed in a BBC interview, describing how he was stuck in a wheelchair for a long time, and how, despite his physical limitations, Plant was determined to keep doing music. Played a big part in making Led Zeppelin's 1977 album Presence from a Wheelchair by recording tracks from his wheelchair. One of the tracks, Achilles' Last Stand, was originally called the Wheelchair Song, because that's how it was written. After the tragic accident, Led Zeppelin had to deal with a lot of problems, like canceling their tour and being behind schedule. Unfortunately, Plant's slow recovery made things even harder, forcing the band to put their musical plans on hold. Despite his physical limitations, Plant worked hard to keep working with the band, even helping to write their next album while in a wheelchair. One notable thing that came out of this time was the writing of Achilles' Last. Believe, a song inspired by Plant's experience of not being able to walk. However, the accident also led to a surprise turn of events. A lawsuit for copyright infringement was filed against the band in 2014. The lawsuit said that Jimmy Page and Robert Plant had stolen the song Stairway to Heaven from the American band Spirits. When he testified in court about his memory loss after the car accident, Plant said that he didn't remember Spirit or any other band playing with Led Zeppelin at that time. "I can't recall Spirit or anyone else memory loss playing there with the passing of time," he said. The singer said that his memory loss was caused by how bad the crash was, revealing that his wife had fractured her skull while he was driving. He said, "I did have a bad car accident. I don't remember seeing Spirit." The string of car accidents left an indelible mark on Plant's life and career, showing how fragile life is and how strong you need to be to deal with problems. Despite the difficulties he faced, Plant's unwavering dedication to his music and his family showed how strong he was. Robert Plant lost his son in 1977. That same year, Led Zeppelin started what would become one of their most successful tours in the United States. The tour was already having trouble because Robert Ann's previous car accident had caused delays and setbacks. At several tour stops, violence and small riots broke out, adding to the tour's ominous mood atmosphere. But on July 26th, tragedy struck in the worst way possible. Robert Plant, got the terrible news that his 5-year-old son Plant was sick with a stomach virus. Got the virus from Plant, who had just gotten better from the same illness. Later that same day, Robert received another call. Delivered the heartbreaking news that Carrick had died. The tragedy of losing their beloved son sent shockwaves through the Leeds Zeppelin camp, and the tour was canceled right away. In a statement to the Robert Plant, Robert's father talked about the close bond between father and son, calling Creek the apple of his eye. In the aftermath of his car accident, Robert Plant took refuge in his family's farmhouse, dealing with unimaginable grief and trying to put together what was left of his broken family. Plant initially avoided the music industry, putting his family above all else. In an honest interview with Charlie Rose in 2012, Plant talked about his feelings, stressing that there are things in life that are more important than entertainment. In a conversation with Rolling Stone, he made it clear that he wanted to leave Led Zeppelin and be with his grieving family during their darkest hour. Even though Plant didn't want to go back to music, it was his bandmate John Bonham's efforts to get him to change his mind, even though he was going through a lot of sadness and personal problems. After the tragic death of his son, Robert Plant found comfort in the friendship and support of his bandmates. He eventually returned to Led Zeppelin to help each other through the rough waters of grief and healing. He thought about teaching after the death of his son. Robert Plant thought about teaching as a way to find more meaning and purpose in his life. In an interview with GQ in 2011, Plant talked about the insecurities that come with working in the entertainment industry. He admitted that he wanted a more honest and selfless path, and he thought about leaving the self-centered world of music for a job that would allow him to make a bigger difference. Plant's reflections made him think about applying for a teaching job at the Rudolf Steiner Waldorf schools in the West Midlands, hoping that the prospect of a He described the turning point in an interview with BBC's Desert Island Discs. Plant talked about an amazing meeting he had with his bandmate John Bonham that would change his mind forever. As Plant made his way to the Waldorf Education Center, he discovered renewed purpose was waiting for him at the gate in an unexpected way. In a strange turn of events, Bonham, dressed as a chauffeur and driving a six-door Mercedes, took Plant to a nearby pub to try to convince him not to quit music. Bonham's unwavering support and conviction inspired Plant, and he decided to stay with Led Zeppelin, at least for the time being. In Bonham's act of friendship and support, Plant found new purpose and resolve, realizing the powerful effects of friendship and solidarity in navigating life's challenges. Robert Plant has always been interested in Indian culture and music, which has had a big impact on his musical career. This interest later grew to include music from Northern Africa, which shows Plant's eclectic taste and daring spirit. Mohammed Rafi, one of India's most famous playback singers, holds a special place in Plant's heart as his musical hero. No quarter traditions. Plants formed a close relationship with a Gujarati family who lived near his wife Morn Plant's family home. Plant would often drop by unannounced to enjoy their rich culinary delights and soulful music, which grew his love for Indian music. Plant's love for Indian music culminated in a memorable recording session with Jimmy Page in 1972, Page and Plant worked with famous classical musicians Sultan Khan and No Quarter. This started their journey of musical exploration that led to their interest in non-Western sounds. In 1994, Plant and Page got back together for a project called No Quarter, but the endeavor didn't have the Led Zeppelin name on it because John Paul Jones wasn't there. An important part of the project was filmed in Morocco, where Plant and Page immersed themselves in the rich cultural tapestry of the area. North African music is heard throughout the live album, with tracks that feature catchy rhythms and melodies that show how the duo's music has evolved. Arabic and Oriental influences can also be heard on Plant's solo albums, such as Mighty Rearranger and Carry Fire, which show his versatility as a musician. Through his constant exploration of different musical traditions and dedication to pushing artistic boundaries, John Bonham's death marked the end of Led Zeppelin for Robert Plant. Robert Plant and John Bonham were more than just bandmates, they were lifelong friends who had a deep connection forged in their black country roots and shared musical goals from high school to the peak of Led Zeppelin's success. Before Bonham's tragic death in September 1980, the circumstances of his death cast a somber shadow over Led Zeppelin's future. Ultimate Classic Rock states that the band was getting ready for their long-awaited tour, which would be their first since 1977. But Bonham's battle with alcoholism had reached a critical point, and on the day of his death, John Paul Jones found Bonham's lifeless body. Remembered the last rehearsals with a mix of sadness and worry, realizing the damage that Bonham's drinking had done to his friend, even if it was only for a short time. Bonham's heavy drinking led to a tragic accident that killed him, leaving his bandmates reeling from the sudden loss. For Plant, hearing of Bonham's death was a devastating blow. Led Zeppelin without him seemed impossible. Robert Plant's unique voice is a big part of Led Zeppelin's sound, but the musician had some serious vocal problems in the early 1970s. When Bonham's son Jason Bonham played in the band's only reunion show, the 2007 Celebration Day concert in London, Plant remained adamant that Led Zeppelin could never be recreated without Bonham. When Jason Bonham brought up the idea of a possible reunion, Plant's response showed how much he loved and respected his fallen friend. He had surgery to remove nodules from his vocal cords, which most likely happened between late 1972 and early 1973. After the surgery, Plant's singing voice got a lot better, which led many people to wonder when the surgery happened and how it improved his singing. However, in the early 1990s, he had a scary experience when he started getting disturbing. Plant got bad news from a voice specialist in London. He told Dan Rather that the specialist gave him a grim prognosis, saying that his voice would get worse to the point where it would no longer be able to express surprise within 6 months. This terrible prediction could have ended Plant's career as a rock star, but Plant was strong and determined to get through it. He looked to other musicians who had been through similar problems, like Elton John and Steven Tyler, for inspiration. He refused to give up and started a journey of recovery. No matter what treatments were needed to keep his voice and keep pursuing his love of music, Plant's faith in his ability to get better was well-founded. He and Patty Griffin dated well-founded. Contrary to the specialist's bleak forest cast, Plant not only kept his vocal abilities but also continued to thrive creatively. He released several records after the doctor's ominous warning. Robert Plant's love life took a big turn when he started dating musician Patty Griffin in 2010. They had worked together in his project Band of Joy, and their relationship quickly grew on both personal and professional levels, with Plant finding in Griffin not only a romantic interest but also someone who could help him through hard times. Griffin was not only Plant's partner but also a source of musical inspiration. The chemistry between them was palpable, which is why Plant moved to Austin, Texas, where Griffin lived. This was a big change for Plant, who had already been living in the U.S. for a while. Griffin's influence on Plant's musical style became clear as their relationship grew. Plant spoke highly of Griffin's musical prowess and soulful presence. In an interview with Louder, he talked about how she helped him grow as an artist and how she was a source of both musical integrity and personal fulfillment. However, their relationship took a turn in 2014 when they broke up. Plant was facing the end of his relationship with Griffin and was at a crossroads. It was during this time of reflection and change that he made a decision. Plant made the big decision to go back to his home country of Wales. Going back to his roots was a profound experience for him that changed the direction of his music in unexpected ways. Rolling Stone says that his album Lullaby and the Ceaseless Roar was heavily influenced by his homecoming, with Plant thanking the country's landscapes and people for giving him the chance to reconnect with them. Robert Plant called the album Ode to Life, Love, and the Unpredictable Journey of Existence. When he thought about his decision to move back to Wales, he felt like he was rediscovering himself and starting over. The familiar surroundings and support of friends and confidants gave him a sense of stability and inspiration. The truth about Robert Plant and Phil Collins. Phil Collins rock fans may remember an important moment when Robert Plant and Phil Collins were on stage together during Led Zeppelin's long-awaited return to the stage at the famous Live Aid concert in July 1985. This historic event was shown to an audience of 1.5 billion people from JFK Airport in Philadelphia. Stadium is still remembered for the grandeur of the event, but Led Zeppelin's performance that day was hampered by technical problems, instruments that weren't playing in tune, and Plant's voice not being at its best. The result was a disastrous show that caused problems between Collins and Jimmy Page Collins, Led Zeppelin's lead guitarist. Page Collins famously juggled two performances that day by flying across the Atlantic to join the band. He later said he felt bad about it. He talked about his part in the performance in interviews and compared it to being a square peg in a round hole. Years after the event, Collins honestly said that the atmosphere around Led Zeppelin was like a nasty strain of alchemy, suggesting a palpable tension and discomfort when Plant reunited with his old bandmates. Despite the difficulties, Plant maintained a diplomatic stance, praising the efforts of everyone involved, while acknowledging the difficulties faced during the. Even though there were problems during the Live Aid performance, there was no lingering tension between Plant and Collins in the years that followed. In fact, Collins said in an interview that they remained friends after the short setback at Live Aid. The connection between Plant and Collins goes deeper than many rock fans may realize. What's often overlooked is Collins's key role in supporting Plant during a time of personal and musical turmoil. After the tragic deaths of his son Crunk in 1977 and his close friend John Bonham in 1980, Plant felt lost both creatively and emotionally. In an interview with Rolling Stone, he told the magazine that he wanted to leave Led Zeppelin and focus on his family. However, he found a new sense of purpose thanks in part to Collins's support and encouragement, as Plant explained in his podcast Digging Deep, the Robert Plant podcast. Collins, who admired Bonham's drumming, encouraged Plant to pursue a solo career and even offered to help with the recording of his debut solo album Pictures at 11, which came out in 1982. During the recording process, Plant found inspiration in Collins's enthusiasm and work ethic, learning important lessons about how to be patient and focused as a solo artist. Collins's participation in Plant's second solo album, Principle of Moments, which came out in 1983, showed that their friendship went beyond the studio, as Collins joined Plant on a North American AIMER tour to promote the album. In a 2019 podcast, Plant talked about their partnership and how much he appreciated Collins's enthusiastic support and positive influence. The relationship between Plant and Collins goes beyond just working together on music. It's based on mutual respect, admiration, and unwavering support. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. If you found this video interesting, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel to help us grow.